Yo, how's it going? So sometimes the truth or real life is stranger than fiction. So a tearful teen suspect charged with murder as cops recover a knife sweatshirt after a random fatal stabbing of beloved New York City activist. Now, this man that got stabbed and eventually died and his girlfriend are people who are, well, a lot of people would use the term woke, are very left leaning, are very supportive of certain groups, and are very anti police, are very pro BLM, and they ended up getting stabbed by a young black male. So it's kind of like a super if you were like to take a step back and just look at the situation, it just seems like crazy. Like if someone were to just tell you that this happened, you're like, huh? So you got people who are super pro BLM getting stabbed by a young black man, and it's like they're like cult like viewpoint over groups, right? Over very left leaning groups is that the person's like friends basically said like, oh, he would have been like very sorry for the individual, would have done stuff to try to get the person like a lesser charge or lesser punishment for him killing him. Like it's so crazy when you think about it. Like this whole situation is just like it's mind blowing to me because it's just so weird. So let's check this out. And it sucks that the individual died. Like that's not funny, but it's just like the situation. Like you wouldn't even really like think about like making up a story about like a crime like that happening because it's just so far fetched. So the 18-year-old man, which this is the thing that's kind of like crazy. There's so many like news articles and probably even in this title of this like video where they describe the young black man as 18 because 18 whatever, but to try to like almost like minimize what actually went down, the guy stabbed the dude in the heart, like in the heart. Okay, that's like straight up murder. Okay, that is not just like you have a disagreement, you guys like tussled, you guys fought or whatever because maybe you guys just were pissed off. The guy straight up stabbed him in the heart. Okay? This is crazy. And from what it seemed like, for like almost no reason. So the 18-year-old man suspected in the random stabbing death of a beloved Brooklyn social justice activist was arrested on Thursday as cops raiding his apartment found a knife and a sweatshirt matching the one the attacker wore, police and sources said. Brian Dowling was pictured with tears running down his face and cuffs around his wrists and ankles as officers escorted him from the NYPD's 81st Precinct in Bedford. Stuyvesant after charging him with murder and criminal possession of a weapon. The accused killer was wearing the same white t-shirt and striped shorts as when cops busted him at his home on Lafayette Avenue near Malcolm X Boulevard just down the block from where Ryan Carson, 32, was knifed to death early Monday as his girlfriend watched. And like from the social media posts that were like getting exposed, right? The girlfriend is like very hardcore ACAB, which is like all cops are bastards type of thing, where like she's very anti-police, which is like th- this is the thing that people don't understand. If you have less police in an area, things are going to get more dangerous. If there is less police presence in general, things are going to generally uptick in violence. Like, it's just the nature of things because they almost act as like a deterrent. Now that doesn't mean that you necessarily have to like cops, but it's like that position serves a purpose in a community. And the scary thing is when you have like a city with a huge population of people all stuffed together in a small section, small area. You need more cops to manage that amount of people. Like if you lived in the country, like I not mean country, You probably wouldn't even need a cop for like acres. Like for like almost like a whole county, you probably wouldn't even need a cop. Like maybe you'd need like a 5 man like sheriff department, maybe. But like there's such little population that it wouldn't even make sense for really there to pay for a cop to oversee the area. You might just have like a volunteer police force pretty much. But in the city, like you need a huge cop presence to try to prevent things like this. But man, and also to me, I've never understood why people like living in a city when you know that city is trying super hard to get rid of cops, and you're like, yeah, let me stay in a massive city with people of all different cultures, potentially clashing together, with a huge population size, with a rise in crime going on, with a lot of theft going on. Yeah, I really want to be in that situation. Not to mention how they're basically getting, a lot of these criminals like a slap on the wrist. Like, do you really want to be like living in areas like that? So the accused killer, blah, 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 yeah, okay. Yeah. More than a dozen officers descended on the property, searching for clothing allegedly worn by the suspect during the caught on camera attack. Cops found both Dowling and the dark champion sweatshirt believed to have been worn by the killer in the video of the attack, the sources said. Officers also found a knife in the home and will be working to determine if it was the murder weapon, sources said. Now, the thing that, like, is kind of crazy to me, like, the guy's crying. Like, you're crying. Dude, you killed someone. You ended someone's life. AKA, they are not ever seeing the road, experiencing the road ever again. You just got arrested for doing that, for choosing to do that. Because that's the reality. He chose to kill someone. For what? You're 18 and now you just ended your own life after ending someone else's life? Not to mention destroying that girl that was with the guy that died. Like, the amount of PTSD that she's going to get from literally witnessing a murder right in front of her. Like, a lot of people are not going to be able to overcome that. Like, the amount of damage done by this act is insane. And he's just crying. It's like, dude. Dowling was escorted from the apartment into a squad car by a huddle of officers. A video from CBS News showed a ceiling has been cut. Carson's father, Ken Carson, wrote on Facebook at 11:30 Thursday morning. More details will follow, he added in a follow-up comment. I'm on the road escorting Ryan home to Massachusetts right now. I wasn't leaving New York City without him. Dowling lawyered up and did not make any statements to cops after his arrest, law enforcement sources said. But, his kind of statement of crying is kind of like pretty telling. Because you pretty much know, like the guy knows that basically his life is done. Straight up. Right? You're on video committing a murder. Okay? Like, you're not going to get a slap on the wrist for that. Right? Regardless of how left leaning a city is, you straight up shoved a knife into a guy's heart on video. So sources previously identified a mentally disturbed teen as the main person of interest in the murder of Carson. He was attacked near at a B38 bus stop in Bedford Stuyvesant just before 4 a.m. Monday. Carson, a longtime campaign organizer for the New York Public Interest Research Group, and his girlfriend were heading home from a wedding on Long Island when the senseless attack occurred, police said. The assailant seemed to target Carson at random, forcing the community advocate to stand between the stranger and his girlfriend. The troubling surveillance footage obtained by the Post showed. The unhinged man can be heard yelling, "I'll kill you," before the two scuffle, with Carson eventually tumbling over the bus stop bench while the attacker pulls out a knife and stabs him 3 times, according to cops in the video. Carson lay crumpled on the ground when the assailant turned on his girlfriend and spat on her. An unknown woman, who police said knows the suspect, then appears in the corner of the frame and seems to beg the knife-wielding man to not hurt him, and repeats what sounds like Brian. But he already killed the guy. So Carson died from a stab wound that pierced his heart, officials said, and his 32nd birthday would have been on Friday, records show. See, like, that's sad. He's like, this is the thing, right? Like, people have the right to, like, different views and whatnot. Like, I'm not judging the person for, like, their views or whatever, like, the individual that ended up passing away. It's just, it's sad to see someone's life end over the choices of another person. Like, for example, is one thing if you choose to, like, let's say, like, eat yourself into a coma and pass away because you're super morbidly obese, but that's a choice that you are making yourself, potentially doing to yourself, right? So you're going to get the effects of that yourself, right? But this other dude just decided to randomly stab this guy for no reason. And look, the guy might have been, like, completely high, probably was on fentanyl, potentially, who knows, because of how rampant that thing is within these major cities. But there's no excuse for it, right? And what the lawyers might try to do might either be like, like an insanity clause, potentially, but I doubt that's actually going to, like, go through. I think the guy's going to be punished pretty severely, even in a left-leaning area. So by Wednesday, police said they had identified the suspect, but were waiting for probable cause to make this arrest. NYPD Chief of Detectives Joseph Kenning said. Police said the alleged attacker may have been fighting with a woman, identified by friends as his twin sister, Brianna, shortly before he began kicking over and damaging mopeds and scooters that were parked on the sidewalk. He then turned on Carson, seething, "What the F are you looking at?" Source said the teen works at a high school in Clinton Hill and is known to frequent the area of Commodore Barry Park in Fort Greene. It is unclear if he had a juvenile record, which would be sealed. But Dowling was issued 3 summonses in 2022, including 2 for disorderly conduct, and was a robbery victim in 2021, sources said. He was also cited in an incident report related to a July incident in which his aunt claimed he smashed objects in his girlfriend's apartment following a fight and described him in a 911 call as mentally disturbed, sources said. If anything, this guy probably isn't mentally disturbed. He's probably a guy who has extreme aggression, right? But also only cares about himself, which is why he had enough feelings to actually cry about his situation, because he knows, oh, my life is done, right? So he feels bad for himself. He certainly doesn't feel bad for the victim, that's for sure. So Eric Riddick, 58, who described himself as the best friend of the suspect's dad, Brian Dowling Sr., and considered the Dowlings his second family, said the teen was always a good kid, with no previous red flags that would have explained the murderous actions he is accused of. Yeah, you're always such a good kid if you end up stabbing someone in the heart. Uh-huh, totally. I mean, there were really no issues where you can go back and check if there were any kind of problems with him in the past, Riddick said. Now, I'm not saying that, like, Someone who has like a completely normal mental state for pretty much their whole life can't just like have like a mental crack and something like just triggers them because that can probably happen to anyone. But it kind of sounds like this guy had a history of extreme aggression, right? So if you combine extreme aggression with the lack of basically empathy towards other people, but also that you have like a strong like emotional tie to what happens to yourself, it's like this guy is like probably like a narcissist with extreme aggression. So it's not a good mix like at all. Still, Riddick said that Dowling's mental state should be looked at by authorities. Riddick said he'd spoken with the teen just a couple weeks ago on this block and everything looked fine, adding that Dowling who was heavy into sports, had just graduated from high school this past spring and most recently worked in construction with a previous job at a restaurant, he said. He said he was on the phone with Dowling's dad earlier Thursday and showed up at the home in the late afternoon because he was so distraught he couldn't speak to me. Two young women who described themselves as best friends, Brian's twin sister Brianna, but also friendly with Brian, also showed up at the Dowling house, and when asked about the suspect's mental health, one of them replied, "I do know there have been issues." She refused to give further details before receiving consent from the family. And a few hours after Dowling's dramatic arrest, one neighbor who requested to remain anonymous told the Post it was complete shock to hear about what Dowling did. Like, look at this, right? You see him right here. This guy's trying to push him away, which is kind of crazy. Like the girls, like all the like his this guy's girlfriend is just like standing there. Like she should have been like running, calling 911 or whatever, but no, she didn't do nothing. This guy's literally just like walking him down, right? And right here, you could see him literally carrying a knife, chasing him. Now I believe he ends up tripping onto this bench, which allows him to basically go straight on top of him and stab him. And then he faces the girl, but oof. Let's see. I mean, what was he even doing roaming the street at that time of day with a knife? Now, here's the thing. I don't think there's anything wrong with someone carrying a knife, right? But this guy, for sure, intended to kill this individual. Like, he's literally chasing him down, like holding a knife downward like this. Like, that's crazy. The individual said he lived in the neighborhood all his life and used to know Dowling's family better. He remembered the accused murderer as a good kid. They're always going to keep saying, like, these individuals are good kids. Like, oh, he was such a good kid. Nothing really ever happened when he was a kid. You sure? Like, what's your actual definition of a good kid? Right? So, I mean, he could have technically been a good kid on the outside to, like, the adults, but at the same time, basically beating the crap out of other kids. Right? So today with the young kids, they get all their stuff from the internet, all these bad influences, and they don't want to hear what we gotta say, they lamented. What does the internet have to do with a guy out of aggression, for whatever reason, decides to just randomly stab a dude that's like looking at him? Okay? What does the internet have to do with that? I mean, one day you could be dead close to the person and they're thinking murderous things or got a murderous mind. I mean, that's major. I mean, heck, isn't there like a song called Murder on My Mind? Other neighbors said Thursday that, of course, the arrest of Dowling in their heinous crime is shocking. Imagine if it was someone from your block, said Ricardo Sanchez, 51. Alyssa Vladimir, 39, added that after reading about Carson's activism work, it seemed like if he would have lived, he would have advocated for Dowling not to be incarcerated like that, so that I think is the most tragic part about the whole thing. It's not really the tragic part, it's kind of like, would the right term be ironic? I don't know. I mean, you could correct me, but it's just like it's so weird. Like I said, truth seems far weirder than fiction. We don't hang out outside at 4 a.m., but we heard about it through the news, and there was all this commotion outside. She said, I feel really bad. He made one really bad decision, and that's going to affect him for the rest of his life. The thing is, I don't even know if he's actually going to get out from that type of act. I mean, it might be a situation where he gets out like after 25 years, which to me is like, if you purposely kill someone, you should probably get probably the death penalty or life in prison, like one of those two, because like you literally ended someone's life. Let's see some of these comments, and feel free to give your thoughts about this too. I just found it very interesting because you had someone who like really advocated for certain things, and then basically someone from the community that they advocated for off them. Like it was like such a weird thing to like picture. Let's see. Concealed carry, legal or not, is better than the alternative. Let's see. What's this punk crying about? He's made his bones, and now he's a killer. With these people, killing someone gives you a status, gets you jobs, and gets you laid. Interesting. Yeah, a lot of people are almost kind of like making fun of the victim, which I don't want to do. It's just like, again, just like the mental image is so eye catching, I guess, like mentally speaking. So, in honor of the victim's political philosophy, he should be released, provided with free housing for life, and a medal of meritorious service presented to him by Mayor Party Boy. All law enforcement personnel involved in the investigation and arrest should be fired and prosecuted immediately. No bail. Like, the thing is, the crazy thing about it, due to the things that he supported, and also what his girlfriend supported, this kind of like thinking as to like what the outcome should be is actually not too far off from what they would try to potentially do, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. Let's see. Prayers for this unfortunate soul and strength and peace for his family to endure. That's probably the nicest comment in this comment section. The killer made one really bad decision and is going to affect him for the rest of his life. Bad decision? Question mark, question mark, question mark, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. He murdered this poor victim. Stop labeling evil and depraved acts as bad decisions or bad choices. It takes away the grave personal responsibility we all have to not harm, let alone kill another human being. Yeah, see, the thing is, this is pretty much a very evil act because the guy went out of his way to go and basically chase down this guy and kill him. Like, this is some really evil stuff. Yeah. Feel free to give your thoughts about this. I just thought this was like a very interesting situation. But what's also crazy, who knows? Maybe there'll be like some sort of like civil lawsuit on who knows? Maybe the girlfriend. Like you never know what's going to happen with this type of stuff, right? Like there's some like crazy outcomes with this sort of stuff. Like who knows? Like who knows what's going to pop up in like a week or two or a month or who knows? Just insane to me. But prayers to the guy who passed away, even though there's probably like a 99% chance that the guy did not believe in God.